Thank you so much for joining us. This recording is going to be part of our podcast series on a podcast called From the Mentor's Desk. And the main audience for that podcast are early career or novice researchers that want to build a career in externally funded healthcare research and innovation. And this interview is part of a special series put on by the Center for Combat Research to talk to leaders in military medicine or have work that has implications for military medicine, to learn about your career, important choices you've made, mentorship, and leadership lessons. So we just have a short time together, but we're gonna try to make it really high value. So obviously you were a highly accomplished leader in the Navy, among other roles. I guess if you were thinking about talking to early career people who are looking forward, trying to make the right choices or doing things that will help them grow as a leader or become visible as a potential future leader, what advice do you have for people?
When I was a young leader and graduated from Naval Academy and even high school, I never thought that I would be in this position, to be quite frank with you. So I think a lot of it is just working hard, is just bloom where you're planted. So whatever you're doing, if you're doing something that may or may not be to your liking, just do it well and excel wherever you are. I think that's one of the key things, and that your career is a marathon and not a sprint. Often, everyone wants to just by 30, and I was one of those people, man, I thought I was going to be chief of naval operations. I thought I was going to be the man, and I wasn't. One of the things that I noticed, though, is that when you start off as a young researcher or in whatever career field that you are, after you graduate from college or get your a master's or PhD, it takes you about 10, 15 years to kind of get your craft together. But then after that, your technical skills, your analytical skills rule. But after about 15 years or so out of college or so, it's all of a sudden those soft skills that become dominant. Because all of a sudden you were the best researcher at whatever that was, but then all of a sudden you have a couple other PIs that you may have to oversee a grant or oversee something, or you might have 3 or 4 of them. And so you aren't the expert, or you could be the expert, but you have to know the right questions, but you have to know how to make those people tick, how to motivate them, how to mentor them, how to get them through things. And so I think that was the biggest thing that I had to learn, is all of a sudden I got to a certain point, lieutenant commander or so, and all of a sudden I started getting more people. And I'm a surface warfare officer by trade, and so that's pretty good swell. But then when I had other departments and other things, all of a sudden my skill set changed. And it took me a while to figure out what that was. So that's something as a young researcher, is to start noticing when that happens, and you have to start shifting a little bit in order to be successful and go to the next level.
I hear you on these soft skills, and I wonder, for people who really don't understand what those soft skills really represent, do you mind talking a little bit about some of those soft skills and some of, in the past you've talked about like Admiral Mullen and some other leaders who you've looked up to and have mentored you, and some of the things that they've helped you to develop. Talk a little bit about some of those skill developments and how that's helped to advance you over your time.
I think that, again, we went to school, Naval Academy. It's engineering, it's math, it's science, and, being the best at operating what you do. But over time, though, I think one thing is to know yourself, is to know other people, know your audience, okay? I think other thing for a leader, and Admiral Mullen and others taught me this, is wherever you are, to have a vision, to establish a vision, but also understand leadership traits. There are about 7 of them generally, but understand those. And so one of the things that it took me a long time is if you're an I or an E, if you're an introvert or an extrovert. And all that is where you get your energy from. Most engineers and doctors, you guys are introverts because you solve the problems. But because I was a big E and like slap people on the back and hug and everything like that, when I started evaluating people, it was the E's that I would rank on top. And it was the I's that I would rank lower until I really understood what the I's were the contributors. And so that helped me be more introspective about myself as well. And I learned that, again, from some great leaders or so. In knowing yourself, then you understand your impact and your communication impact on other people.
I would say you just encapsulated the kernel of leadership qualities and leadership skills, which is self-knowledge and communication. I mean, that's beautiful. I guess one question, you mentioned another leader. Did you get that from a mentor in particular? Did you get that from, a number of
I got
leaders?
that from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, you learned the hard way.
That's a fair way to get that.
Yeah, it is. But luckily, I was able to observe, and that's why role models are so important. Again, without being political or anything like that, having role models, being able to have a woman role model, being able to have a role model who looks like me, because a role model who looks like you, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm proud of it, but when other people see people from Cleveland making it, what if somebody from Cleveland had never been an admiral before? Well, what does that tell you how the Navy felt about people from Cleveland? All right, and so that's why, again, having role models, and again, for young researchers or something, go look at the bio, look at your biography, because that's who you want to be. I looked at Admiral Mullen's biography and other admirals once I got a little bit more senior to see, well, what they did, what their career path was. And so that's why role models are so vitally important, because they are the guide to get you through to the next level.
I like your idea. I tell people this too, that when you're looking for mentors, you always should have people like you and people different than you on many dimensions, right?
Yes,
I said,
exactly.
I'm a PhD. Absolutely, I should have an MD and a PhD. I need a woman and I need a man. I need a person who's early career and somebody who's established, because all of these people can help you understand the context and what's important.
In your business, that you deal in life or death in many ways. And, being a line officer, being a surface officer, we all have blind spots. And so that is why it's important to have diverse people around you, people that you may or may not like, but that they have a skill set or talent that they can help you from that blind spot that we all inherently have, and give you that insight that you may need in order to make a right decision.
One of the hallmarks of your career, one of the many, is your impact on the Naval Academy Preparatory School and really bringing up people who have a lot of those talents, but either don't believe in themselves or haven't had some of the skill development that they've needed. How can we help to continue to drive that, not just at the Naval Academy, but also in medicine and in other careers, to help create researchers that have that breadth of educational background and also cultural background that's really going to give us all of the ideas?
We have a NAPS mentoring program, and that's Naval Academy Prep School. I went to Naval Academy Prep School. I came in the Navy when I was 17 years old, but my grades weren't quite where they needed to be. And plus I came in early. And so one of my big passions is developing future leaders. And I'm very passionate, I get emotional about it sometimes, about just what the Navy did for me, all right? But part of it was I always had somebody to reach down, somebody that always patted me on the back. Hey, JC, you need to do this. JC, you didn't do so good here. Pat you on the back and keep you motivated. And the same thing with researchers. One of the things that I do, again, with the Naval Academy, again, a volunteer, is I'm with one of our alumni minority associations. All right, I don't care who the people are. As soon as I say that word, it's not me, it's anybody. If you want to join the Navy. I don't care who you are. I'm going to try to help you get in there because it did so much for me. But as far as researchers, one of the things that we do is we conduct STEM programs at the middle school level and high school level. And so that's where you've got to be able to plant the seed. They need to see you and see the things that you're doing. They need to be able to see you in what you're doing. And we bring in a lot of folks. We have people who are PhDs. We have folks who are, captains in the Navy. We have a variety of people who come in, and a lot are former Napsters or not, but they went to our great institution and they plant that seed for young men and women. And I think it's the same thing for researchers, that they need to be able to understand that. Because one of the things that I find is that some people, particularly going in the medical community, and I find this a lot, is their mother or grandmother had breast cancer. And wouldn't you like to do research on that so that someone else doesn't do that? And that's the seed that you have to be able to plant, or very early.
So it sounds like you're saying really it's to be present for those younger generations and help to plant that you can do this.
If it's that song, if I can see it, I can do it. And it really is. And some, children and that are in underserved communities or in big communities, they just need to be able to see somebody. And I think particularly where so many of our, particularly young men, kind of go in another direction is because they haven't seen a role model or said, you know what, I could be a researcher. I could do this. I might not be good in math and statistics, which are important to research and everything, but, I can make it because, hey, I went to a prep school or I had to take statistics again, but who cares 20 years later when you've solved a big problem?
You've mentioned motivation a couple times. You said pats on the back. How do you keep people motivated? For instance, going to the prep school, going to the academy, getting into medical school, right? These are all highly competitive, highly selective things. And I mean, even here at the University of Colorado, we have a shocking number of super talented young people apply to medical school. There's only so many seats. I mean, it is limited. How do you keep people striving when inevitably somebody's going to tell you no?
I think a couple things is that, one, you got to be able to say that, hey, they can do it. You can do it. The other thing is, I always say, you know what? You didn't necessarily make it on the first try. I didn't make Admiral on my first try. I didn't make it on my second try. I made it on my third try. But you know what they call me? Admiral.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, and nobody cares about that.
Let's go.
And so a lot of it is just grit, resilience. If it's something that you really want. Now, if you don't have the grades, if you don't have the aptitude and things like that, I say continue to apply again. If they don't make it here, try another school. But you've got to continue to try, and that's one of the things that goes into resilience. All right. Now, if you're only getting a C, you're not going to do it. But, if you're there, you've taken your MCATs and all of those, kinds of things, there's more than one school or more than one place if it's something that's in your heart and you have the aptitude and skill to be able to do it. So don't give up your dream.
Talk a little bit about when you started mentoring, because at some point we have to have the feeling that we are strong enough as a leader to mentor others. But I think a lot of early career researchers who are still trying to establish themselves, early career doctors, early career military leaders, don't know when it's okay for them to mentor. And some of it comes naturally, but sometimes, especially in the medical community, it's a little more siloed. So talk a little bit about when you first started mentoring and kind of how that felt for you and how you decided to move forward with that.
I think I first started, and we wouldn't call it then, and we don't know that we're doing it, is when we're doing it with our peers. With football, boy, you would talk to another player, that was right next to your teammate, and you'd say, hey, what about your stance? Or you could do this, and you would practice with one another on a particular technique. And so you don't know that you're doing it when you're doing it to, say, a classmate or a mentor. And that is when I think that mentoring first starts, although we don't know that we're doing it. And my roommate was he was a systems engineer, really smart. So I needed somebody that was engineer and really smart. He needed somebody with a personality. So between the two of us, we got it. And so, mentoring, I think, starts really with your peers. You know where they're weak, and where they know where you're strong and everything. You complement one another. And then I think it becomes more natural as you get more senior and you're kind of used to being able to talk with people. And they have to be open to it as well. But as I became more senior, though, and I saw it with some great leaders, is they just did it naturally. They put their arm around you. And first thing would be, how you doing in your career? You need to think about this particular job. It probably same thing in research. Boy, you know what? This is a ripe field right now. How do you use, AI to develop a new pharmaceutical patent, or how do you use quantum computing or things of that nature? That might be the future. And so those are I think the first things that people accept. All right. When somebody told me I talk too much, that kind of made me mad. It pissed me off. But but it takes the time when you all of a sudden get into personal mentoring. All right. Because I think mentoring cuts across a couple of things: morally, mentally, and physically. And in each one of those, and those resonate with both of us, but in each one of those areas, you have to be able to, when you mentor, when you talk about someone's personal style. And that's where most leaders fail, to be quite frank with you, is their personal style.
Say more about that.
Yeah.
Is that, for lack of a better word, you wind up pissing your staff off. I hate to say it. And, it's just like you get to a certain point and all of a sudden you have other researchers reporting to you. You got a big staff, you've got money, you got budget and everything like that. But if your style is very abrasive, and I'll put it that way, you will fail. And there have been studies. We did a lot of work, in fact, becoming a flag officer at the Center for Creative Leadership.
Oh.
And we spent 2 weeks where they put you in a box as far as personality, everything like that. And all these folks had, commanded. Some were doctors, some were lawyers and things of that nature. But because of their personality, they failed, because then the organization didn't accomplish the mission. And so if all of a sudden you get in your world, you get a lot of research grants and you're supposed to deliver on time and everything like that, and people haven't completed it because somebody made them mad, the mission fails.
It sounds like a lot of the skills that you're describing really fit to your personality. You mentioned being a big E, and being an extrovert, it's much easier for us as extroverts to give a big hug and to pat on the back. What skills have you helped some of your introverted people, especially in your NetApp world, right? You're working in data and tech. These are a lot of introverts. And I think that would translate very well to a lot of researchers. How have you helped to try and encourage those people to utilize their introversion to actually help them to lead and help to mentor them through some of those challenges?
So the other side of that E is I struggled when the I skills were more valued. From the time I graduated from college to the time I got about 35 years old, I struggled, all right, because my research and, I skills weren't there. When I started excelling is all of a sudden once I started getting more people around me and things like that. And so there's a kind of a blessing and a curse to those kinds of things. The first point is, one, being able to realize that. The second point, though, is being able to talk to some of our engineers and technical people about well, what's the value that you're providing? You know, when we talk about somebody's providing 1 terabyte of storage, they get all happy and everything like that, and everything. And I say to them, well, what does that mean? What organization, what mission did we support? Okay, if you had 1 terabyte of epic data, all right, for healthcare, then you help, you know, several hundred thousands of people. All right, that is what I think matters to you know, a lot of folks. But the technical folks are like, man, I did this, but I just have to pair it with what is the value add.
You taking us back to what you said in the very beginning, which is people need to be able to tell their story, the story of their mission, to bring other people who don't know what they know into their world.
Yes.
Right, to engage, support, and maybe to lead or to get funds or allies or collaborators.
And you know what? It's okay for 30, 40-year career to be that best person at a particular area, because we need that. And so, you know, there are some people who go on in our world to go on in command, but there are other people, man, I just want to be that best urologist and to or best oncologist, okay, or research with that. It's okay. We need those kinds of people. And so there was somebody, his name was Dr. Time. And all he did was he studied times and quarks and quasars and everything like that. But our watches and all the things that we do now and our weapon systems or things like that are based on his 30, 40, 50 year of research of doing that same thing with his desk piled with papers and everything like that. If you're the best at what you do and that's what God gifted you to do, then run with that particular gift. I got a skill set that's a little different than other people's skill set.
Whenever we talk to leaders, it goes so fast. It feels like we just sat down. We didn't. But we have time for like one closing message. I want to say thank you and invite you and ask you if we can continue this conversation at another visit. Is there any parting advice you have for anybody?
Young researchers, young leaders, all of the people who may listen.
One, just do the best at what you do. Work hard. Be kind to other people. That's just a personal kind of thing. And just be proud. Think of the mission. Think of don't do the research just for the research, because for lack of a better word, you can nerd out on it. But look at how that is going to help society. And I'm not being altruistic, because I think that once you link things to the mission, that is what creates that vision, all right? And so that's the big thing, is always create a vision for yourself and a vision for where you want that research to be able to lead you. And learn about finances too. Take a couple of business courses. That helps as well.
Okay, we're going to pick that up the next time we talk.
All righty.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.